241,200 years, 8 kings, 5 cities. The numbers written in the Sumerian King List make no sense. How could a human live for 28,000 years? How could a ruler remain on the throne for 43,000 years? But what if these numbers aren't symbolic? What if they're telling us something real? Carved into clay tablets over 4,000 years ago, these records whisper a shocking story about the origins of humanity, beings who came from the sky, genetic manipulation, the first humans created with divine blood, and finally, the Great Flood. Throughout this video, we'll dive deep into the Sumerian tablets. Who were the Anunnaki? Is the planet Nibiru real? Why was humanity created? And most importantly, what's the secret behind the pre-flood kings who lived for thousands of years? The answers lie hidden within the Atrahasis Epic, and those answers will make you question everything you thought you knew. If you're ready, let's descend together into the depths of this mystery. To uncover the truths hidden in the dark, welcome to the discovery of mystery. The trace of the word Anunnaki leads back to the ancient Sumerian civilization of Mesopotamia. Derived from the Sumerian term Anunna, the name means the offspring of An. An was the father of the heavens and of the gods, while Ki symbolized the earth, the realm of humankind. When these two forces combined, they gave birth to the concept of the Anunnaki, beings who came from the heavens yet forged a divine connection with the earth. In the late 20th century, author and researcher Sitchin reinterpreted ancient Sumerian tablets from an unconventional perspective. According to his translations and interpretations, the Anunnaki were not of this world. They came from a massive and mysterious planet called Nibiru, orbiting on the distant, unseen edges of our solar system. Nibiru was described as a ghostly planet, its long elliptical orbit bringing it into the inner solar system once every 3,600 years. Ancient texts suggested that this planet's movements caused cosmic disturbances, gravitational shifts, and even catastrophic events. But Nibiru's atmosphere was collapsing, its climate spiraling toward irreversible disaster. Desperate for a solution, the Anunnaki discovered that gold particles, when dispersed in their atmosphere, could reflect solar radiation and form a protective shield. So they turned their hopes to the cosmos. Using colossal ships equipped with anti-gravity technology, they traveled across planets and arrived on Earth. Here they encountered primitive hominids, early ancestors of humankind. And according to Sitchin, that encounter forever changed the course of human history. On Earth, Mesopotamia and Africa became their strategic centers. Mines were open, processing facilities established, and gold began to be refined. Over time, the labor proved far more grueling than anticipated. Initially, this burden was borne by another divine group known as the Igigi, but after years of toiling in the dark depths of the earth, their patience broke, and the Great Rebellion erupted. The Anunnaki sought a new solution. According to Sitchin, they turned their eyes toward Homo erectus. These beings were limited in intellect but physically resilient. The answer, then, was advanced genetic engineering. They would merge their own DNA with that of Homo erectus to create a new species. The result, the first modern humans, strong enough to labor in the mines, yet intelligent enough to understand complex commands. Humanity, then, was no longer a product of blind evolution. It became the result of a deliberate project by those who came from the sky. The ancient phrase, "man was created in the image of the gods," Sitchin argued, was the echo of that genetic intervention. Of course, Sitchin's claims, based on years of translations and research, were never accepted by mainstream archaeology. However, the Atrahasis Epic, dated to the 18th century BCE, does share several intriguing parallels with his narrative. Written in Akkadian on clay tablets, this epic poem tells the story of Atrahasis, whose name means the very wise one, and who appears in the Sumerian King List as the ruler of Shuruppak before the Great Flood. Recorded some 3,800 years ago, these tablets combine a creation myth with one of the three surviving Babylonian flood accounts, the story of the Great Flood itself. But before diving into the Atrahasis Epic, we must first ask, how long did these first humans truly live? The Sumerian King List is a Sumerian literary composition written between the late 3rd and early 2nd millennia BCE to legitimize the rule of the city-states in southern Mesopotamia. In 1906, Herman Fife Hilprecht published the first fragment, and in 1911, Jean-Vincent Scheil published the second. Most surviving copies date to the Old Babylonian period, with the oldest versions tracing back to the Ur III era. The tablets were primarily discovered in southern Mesopotamia. The first tablet begins, though not all copies preserve this line, with the phrase, "After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in." What follows is a repeated pattern describing how kingship passes from one city to another as cities rise and fall through the ages. What's truly astonishing, however, are the numbers listed in this early section. 8 kings ruling 5 cities for a total of 241,200 years. The cities were Eridu, Bad Tibira, Larak, Zimbir, Sippar, and Shuruppak. The reigns of these kings are nothing short of extraordinary. Alulim, 28,800 years. Al-Algar, 36,000 years. And Menluwana ruled for 43,200 years. And the remaining 5 kings each ruled for tens of thousands of years as well. When you think about the human lifespan, how could this be possible? 241,200 years. 8 kings. Are these numbers logical or symbolic? The answer lies hidden within the Atrahasis Epic, because these immense lifespans are directly connected to how the gods created humankind. According to the story, there was a time when even the gods themselves were forced to work like mortals. The higher gods, the Anunnaki, ruled over the lesser gods, the Igigi. The Igigi dug riverbeds, built irrigation canals, and maintained the flow of water for the land. The Anunnaki oversaw these efforts from above, managed the plans, and enjoyed the fruits of their grand civilizational project. But after 40 years, the Igigi rebelled. In the dead of night, they surrounded the house of Enlil, the chief god of Sumer, who separated air from earth within the cosmic ocean. Enlil was stunned and called upon Anu and Enki for counsel. His messenger, Nusku, attempted to negotiate with the rebels, but it was no use. Enlil, portrayed as a wise and benevolent leader, did not wish to see a destructive war between the higher and lower gods. The solution became clear. The hard labor of the Igigi would be taken over by a new being, obedient and easily controlled. Thus Mami, leader of the 7 wombs of the gods, was summoned. She agreed, but said she could only accomplish the task with Enki's help. Enki consented and first advised the divine assembly to purify themselves, and so they did. On the 15th day, Geshtu, the god of wisdom and intelligence, was sacrificed to the sound of drums. His blood would become the essence of human creation. Mami took clay from the steppe soil, mixed it with Geshtu's blood, added a measure of cosmic water, and molded it into a living form. When the first human awoke, Mami approached him, placed a carrying basket in his hands, and taught him how to work. There is a missing passage in the tablet that describes the sorrow of this first man in his solitude, how none of the gifts offered by the gods could bring back his joy for life. Perhaps that is why the gods decided to give him a companion. The origin of the woman, however, remains unknown due to the broken section of the text. Afterward, to complete creation in the best way, Mami encouraged the young couple to hold a 7-day festival in honor of Ishtar, the goddess of war and sexuality. They obeyed, and 9 months later, from the realm of the gods, the first human child was born. Here lies the crucial point. The first humans were created through the sacrifice of a god, his divine blood mixed with clay and cosmic water. and that is why they were long-lived. This is the secret behind the astonishing lifespans written in the Sumerian King List. But after 1,200 years, humanity multiplied so greatly that their noise began to disturb the gods. Enlil grew furious and ordered Namtar, the god of the underworld, to afflict mankind with a deadly plague. A great devastation followed. Yet Enki, the wise and compassionate deity, approached his loyal priest Atrahasis and advised him, "Worship only Namtar and not the other gods." The plague god was pleased by this devotion, and the epidemic ceased. Another 1,200 years passed, and the population once again surged. The gods of the heavens could no longer find rest. Enlil summoned Adad, the god of storms and rain, and Nisaba, the goddess of fertility, commanding them to ravage the land with tempests and droughts. Meanwhile, Enki, dwelling in the lower heavens, searched for a way to warn Atrahasis without breaking his oath, and he found one. Enki spoke to the wall, "Offer sacrifices only to Adad and Nisaba. Let the other gods go hungry." The devout priest obeyed this divine instruction. Feeling shame for receiving undeserved offerings, Adad and Nisaba withdrew their wrath. Enlil, thwarted at every turn by Enki's interventions, erupted in fury. Before the assembly of the Anunnaki, he forced Enki to swear that he would never again speak to humankind. Then Enlil decreed the annihilation of mankind through the Great Flood. The gods convened to decide the exact timing and duration of the deluge. All-knowing Enki, still bound by his oath, found a way to deliver the message to his faithful priest Atrahasis without speaking directly. He waited until Atrahasis had fallen asleep, then spoke to the wall of his hut, his words indirect yet clear. "Leave your home, build a ship, abandon your possessions and save your life. The ship shall be cube-shaped, roofed and sealed like the Abzu itself, impervious to the waters from above. Tell no one of the coming flood. Bring ample food, and from the moment the catastrophe begins, observe the sand glass for 7 days." Atrahasis did as he was told. He left his belongings behind under a pretense and began building the ship in haste. He called upon his neighbors for help, promising that a great reward would soon come from the heavens. As the deadline approached, he threw a great feast to attract even more workers. Then Adad gathered the clouds. Winds began to blow from every direction. Atrahasis, his sons, those who had helped him, and at least one fertile woman boarded the vessel and sealed the hatch from within with pitch. The great flood erupted. The ship spun and tossed like a pot upon the furious waves pouring through the open floodgates of the cosmic ocean. Enlil grew enraged that his plan to annihilate humankind had been thwarted, while the other gods complained of hunger. There were no humans left to feed them offerings. Witnessing the vast devastation, Mami wept and rebuked Enlil harshly. "Why? Though you are the mightiest warrior among the gods, did you not fight against the rebels?" she cried. Days later, the flood subsided. Atrahasis emerged from the ship and offered food sacrifices to all the gods without distinction. Famished after so long, the gods swarmed around the altar fire like frightened flies and feasted to their heart's content. In gratitude, they granted Atrahasis immortality. He and his wife were sent to live on the distant island of Dilmun, the paradise at the edge of the world. Yet Enlil remained angry with Enki. This time, Enki proposed a lasting solution. From this day forward, humans would know pain and death from the moment of birth. There would be barren and untouchable women, and human lifespans would be drastically shortened. Thus, the population would remain balanced, and the gods would have enough space of their own on Earth. Enlil calmed down, and peace was restored between him and Enki. At this point, the Atrahasis Epic and the Sumerian King List align in a striking way. Enlil's destruction of humanity through the flood and the shortening of lifespans afterward perfectly corresponds with the 1,000-year reigns of the pre-flood kings. According to the epic, the first humans, created with the blood of the gods, lived for tens of thousands of years. After the flood, Enki's solution took effect, and lifespans were shortened. These ancient tablets, filled with creation myths, dialogues between gods and humans, flood narratives, and records of impossibly long reigns, entered modern scholarship in the early 20th century. And all of them provoke a tantalizing thought that humanity may have existed on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years. But the gods, who were they, and where did they come from? Are the stories carved into the cold clay of the Sumerian tablets merely myths, or echoes of a forgotten truth lost in the mists of time? Though Sitchin's claims remain controversial in scientific circles, every story, from Nibiru and the Anunnaki to the Igigi rebellion, the creation of humankind, and the incredible lifespans of the Sumerian kings, whispers the same silent question: where did we really come from? Perhaps the answer lies within that ancient bond between heaven and earth. And perhaps this story isn't over yet, because after Atrahasis came another hero. His name was Gilgamesh, and his journey was nothing less than the search for immortality itself. I've covered this story in detail in another video on my channel. Make sure to check it out. The link is in the description. So, what do you think? Are these tales from the Sumerian tablets merely myths or echoes of a forgotten truth? If the Anunnaki were real, where are they now? Will Nibiru one day return? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, if humanity was created as part of a genetic experiment, what does that say about who we are today? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe in Sitchin's theories? How do you explain the numbers in the Sumerian King List? Let's discuss. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video. I'm also looking forward to your comments. See you in the next mystery.